The movie begins in 1977 in the Middle East, where Kingsman agents are interrogating a criminal. All of a sudden, the criminal detonates a grenade, but a man called Lancelot immediately jumps on top of him to stop the explosion from killing anyone else. As a result, he saved his entire team, but dies in the process. The team's leader, Galahad, appoints a new agent to replace Lancelot. He then heads back to Britain, where he delivers the sad news of the original Lancelot's death to his wife, Michelle. He gives her a medal for her husband's service and tells her to call the number at the back whenever she needs help. He instructs her to say Oxfords, not Brogues, when she calls, but she is too upset to take him seriously. At this point, he meets with Lancelot's young son, Eggsy. When Michelle refuses to take the medal, he gives it to Eggsy and reminds him to take care of his mother before he leaves. 17 years later, the new Lancelot arrives at a secret hideout in Argentina. Inside the cabin, a man named Professor Arnold, who was kidnapped by a group of mercenaries, is tied to a chair. Despite the professor telling the mercenaries that they have the wrong person, they refuse to answer his questions and even prepare a drink for him. Just then, Lancelot knocks on the front door, and when the mercenary answers it, he skillfully kills all of them. He unties the professor just as someone knocks on the front door again. Too fast for him to process. A woman with sharp prosthetic legs cuts him in half. When she opens the door, a man named Valentine enters the cabin and approaches the professor, claiming that they need to talk. Meanwhile, in England, Galahad goes to a place known as the Shop, where he joins a meeting with other agents. They are told that Lancelot has been found dead by a group of mercenaries that is known for experimenting with biological weapons. The shocking fact, however, is that Professor Arnold was seen on campus, which meant that the mercenaries had let him go. The Kingsman's leader, Arthur, tells all of the agents that they need to present a candidate for the role of Lancelot. On the other hand, a grown-up Eggsy gets ready to go out with his friends. When he gets out of his room, he has a heated argument with his stepfather, Dean. Before things can escalate, Eggsy leaves and joins his friends at a pub owned by Dean. There, he steals car keys from one of Dean's men and speeds through the streets. He doesn't get to enjoy it for long as the police start chasing him. Eggsy drives in reverse until he crashes into another car while trying to avoid getting a cat. To make matters worse, Eggsy tells his friends to get out of the car, after which he drives into the patrol car. Eggsy spends the night in custody, as he refuses to give up the names of his friends. He uses his one phone call to call the number written on the back of the medal. At first, he tries explaining his situation, but the operator tells him that he has reached the wrong number. But when he says Oxfords, not Brogues, the operator informs him that his complaint has been registered. To his surprise, Eggsy is let out without any charges. As he exits the police station, Galahad greets him and takes him to the pub where they begin talking. He asks Eggsy why he had dropped out of school and quit the Marines, to which he replies that he needed to be home to look after his mother. At that moment, Dean's boys walk into the pub and prepare to beat Eggsy for stealing the car last night. When Galahad asks them to stop, they call him a grandpa and ask him to leave before he gets hurt. Galahad leaves his unfinished drink behind and heads for the door. He then locks them and uses his umbrella to throw a mug at one of the boys, instantly knocking him out. The rest of the boys watch in shock, but they quickly go in to attack Galahad. As expected, they are no match for his skills. He has all of them on the ground in less than a minute. Unfazed, he goes back to the table and finishes his drink before wishing Eggsy good luck. Galahad pats him on the back and plants a tracker on his back. Sometime later, Eggsy returns home and finds an angry Dean waiting for him. He starts beating Eggsy and asks him who the man was at the bar, but Eggsy pretends to not know what he is talking about. Dean continues to beat him while Galahad listens into everything. He then uses the nanotech to tell Dean that everything has been recorded and instructs Eggsy to head to the tailor shop. Inside the tailor shop, Galahad takes Eggsy into a fitting room and asks him if he is prepared to be a Kingsman. The two of them take a secret elevator and reach the Kingsman's secret hideout. They reach just in time for Eggsy to join the other candidates in a competition to become the next Lancelot. Martin tells the candidates that they need to work as a team and stay alert. Once he leaves, Eggsy is introduced to Roxy, Amelia, Charlie, and a few other candidates. That night, while everyone is sleeping, the room begins to fill with water. When the water reaches their beds, everyone tries to find a solution before they are submerged under the water. Roxy tells everyone that they need to make snorkels out of shower heads, but Eggsy does not understand what they mean. He doesn't get the chance to question the other candidates about it, as they become submerged in the water. While everyone tries to make snorkels, Eggsy notices a two-way mirror and starts punching it. He manages to break it, and once the water drains out, everyone can breathe again. However, Merlin informs them that they have failed the test because they did not work as a team and points towards Amelia, who is now dead. Meanwhile, Galahad visits Professor Arnold and grabs him by the neck, asking him about the group of mercenaries. The professor begins screaming that Galahad is hurting him. All of a sudden, an explosion occurs, causing the professor's head to blow off in Galahad's face. Hearing the explosion, two men with guns show up and are about to shoot Galahad, but he manages to detonate a grenade and jumps out of the building. He sustains injuries and is placed in a medically induced coma. At the same time, Valentine overhears the conversation Galahad had with Professor Arnold and starts looking into the agency that Kingsman belongs to. Despite this, the candidates continue to train until one day, Merlin asks them to pick a puppy who will receive training along with them. Eggsy picks a pug, mistaking it for a bulldog. Despite this, he manages to make it to the top 6 candidates. One day, he visits Galahad, who has just woken up from a coma, and watches the video of Professor Arnold's head getting blown off. Merlin pulls up the information and tells them that the professor had a chip inside his neck that exploded. They learn through Eggsy that Valentine has introduced a free Sazayam card for everyone, which everyone is queuing to get their hands on. During this, Valentine goes around trying to convince officials, including the President of the United States, to agree to his plan. He then meets with the Scandinavian princess and prime minister to do the same. When the princess hears about Valentine's plan, she refuses to become a part of it. The prime minister, on the other hand, agrees to cooperate. The princess is thrown into a holding cell, while the prime minister gets a chip implanted in his neck as an insurance policy to ensure that he will continue cooperating with him. Back in the Kingsman mansion, the candidates are told to jump off a plane, but as they jump, Merlin informs them that one of them does not have a parachute. The candidates hold hands and deploy their parachutes one by one. In the end, Eggsy and Roxy are left and she hugs Eggsy before deploying her parachute as well. After some struggle, the two of them manage to land on the target and impress Merlin. 3 of the candidates were dismissed as they had failed to complete the mission. While they are resting, Galahad pretends to be a billionaire and sets up a meeting with Valentine. When the two of them meet, Valentine suggests that he knows who Galahad is. Once he returns home, Galahad reports that he did not get anything useful other than the fact that Valentine is connected to a church. Unbeknownst to him, Valentine had slipped the same chip into his drink that was now inside his body. That night, the 3 remaining candidates go out to celebrate, but their drinks are spiked and they lose consciousness. When Eggsy wakes up, he finds himself tied to a railway track with a train fast approaching him. A man stands over him and asks him for information about the Kingsman, but he refuses to say anything. As the train gets closer, Eggsy closes his eyes, ready to die for a secret. When he opens his eyes again, he is surprised to see that he is still alive and Merlin is standing over him. Merlin informs him that he has passed the test along with Roxy. As a last test, Arthur tells Eggsy to shoot his dog, but he is unable to do it. In the other room, Roxy does not hesitate to pull the trigger and becomes the new Lancelot, and Eggsy is sent home. He finds that Dean has been hitting his mother and takes Arthur's car, which he gets stolen, to the pub and challenges him. Before he can do anything, the car begins driving by itself and takes him to Galahad's house. The Kingsman is disappointed with Eggsy and reveals that the gun was a blank. It had been a test to see if he had what it takes to become a Kingsman. He then leaves Eggsy with Martin and heads off to his next mission. Sometime later, Galahad arrives at a church and finds nothing out of the ordinary. Just when he gets up to lead, Valentine activates the chip, causing everyone to turn against each other. Galahad gets affected as well. He kills an entire church full of people. By the time Galahad registers what has happened, he realizes that the chip is inside him as well. When he goes outside, he sees Valentine waiting for him along with his assistant, Gazelle. To everyone's shock, Valentine shoots Galahad and kills him. This is how Eggsy becomes the new Galahad. He sits with Arthur as they drink in Galahad's memory, but he is surprised to see that Arthur has an incision in his neck. He quickly puts the pieces together and realizes that Arthur has a chip inside him as well, which means that he has betrayed the Kingsman. Arthur had been trying to poison Eggsy, but when he finds himself choking, he realizes that Eggsy had switched their drinks. The poison quickly kills him, and Eggsy finds Merlin and Roxy waiting for him. The 3 of them come up with a plan to stop Valentine's V-Day. This was a day where once the chips that had been sold as Sadayamas were activated, everyone would turn against each other and try to kill themselves. For him, This is the only way to reverse the damage that humans have done on Earth by reducing the population. While Roxy breaks through the Earth's atmosphere to reach Valentine's satellite, Eggsy, and Martin take Arthur's invitation and arrive at Valentine's compound. Eggsy manages to subdue the Scandinavian Prime Minister and uses his laptop to give Merlin access to Valentine's systems. All of a sudden, Eggsy finds a knife at his neck and is surprised to find Charlie beside him. Charlie informs Valentine that there is a spy among them, but Eggsy quickly electrocutes him using the Kingsman's special ring. He then rushes back to the jet where Merlin is waiting for him. Meanwhile, with only 18 minutes left, Roxy fires a missile and manages to destroy the satellite. Merlin informs the two of them that they have only managed to temporarily delay Valentine's plans, as he is using another satellite to activate the chips. By the time Eggsy finds his way back to the jet, Merlin tells him that he needs to go back and manually stop the activation. Once again, Eggsy makes his way back to the ballroom, but this time, he fights against Gazelle. During this, Valentine activates the chip's chaos to break out in the world. Gazelle puts up a good fight, but Eggsy uses a poisoned blade to nick her, causing her to quickly die. He then uses one of her sharp prosthetic legs and throws it at Valentine, stabbing him in the heart. With his hand no longer on the biometric scanner, he destroys the chips, and everyone who had gotten aggressively violent stops in the middle. The movie ends with Eggsy returning to his hometown and taking his mother away. When Dean tries to stop them, Eggsy locks the doors of the pub and smashes a mug on his head, knocking him out just like Galahad had done to his boys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell to see more videos like this.